5, the inside lane is closed northbound from junction 24 to 23 near Bridgewater for emergency repairs. And on the trains, Thameslink services are still not stopping at City Thameslink in central London after the railway bridge became flooded. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Want to be one of 2 lucky Great British giveaway winners? That's right, you could win one of 2 prize bundles, which includes a brand new iPhone 16, £500 in shopping vouchers to spend in your favourite store, and an incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. What would you spend that cash on? For a chance to win an iPhone, vouchers and £10,000 in cash, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Very, very good evening to you. It's Thursday, the 6th of February, and I'm Martin Daubney, filling in for the big man, Nigel Farage, on Farage Tonight. Kemi Badenoch has unveiled her first new policy as Conservative leader. Hooray! By pledging to double the amount of time an immigrant needs to have been in the UK before claiming indefinite leave to remain. But is it too little and too late? And the Home Secretary has said she would support schools bringing in knife archers to stop children from carrying weapons and other blades. But how have we got to this state of affairs? And President Trump's war on diversity, equity and inclusion continued last night as he signed an executive order banning trans women, that's biological men, from women's sport. And here in Britain, the cash-strapped NHS has advertised for a head of equality for the small salary of £123,000. Now, is it time the UK followed suit and consigned DEI to the dustbin of history? Well, that's on tonight's show, but first, here's your headlines, and it's Mark White.
Good evening. The main headlines from the GB News Centre. Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch has criticised the Prime Minister's style of leadership over claims he broke COVID lockdown rules. Speaking to GB News, the Tory leader questioned the explanation Sir Keir Starmer gave for meeting with a voice coach during lockdown. Ms Badenoch branded Sir Keir a lawyer, not a leader.
Interesting is just how hypocritical Keir Starmer has been. I don't know anyone who needs emergency voice coaching on Christmas Eve. I think that Keir Starmer is a lawyer, not a leader, and I think he knows exactly what he can and cannot say to get himself out of trouble.
Meanwhile, GB News can confirm that the Prime Minister has met in private with victims of the Southport attack today. It's the third time Sir Keir has visited the Merseyside town since last July's stabbings. This latest visit was intended as an opportunity to meet the bereaved families and some of the victims in the wake of the sentencing of the Southport murderer Axel Rudakubana. Earlier, the Prime Minister visited Lancashire and said nuclear power would be prioritised in the spending review. At a nuclear laboratory alongside the Energy Secretary, Sir Keir said more nuclear power plants will be approved as red tape is slashed. Ministers say the plans aim to make it easier to build small modular reactors to help deliver clean, secure and more affordable energy. 2 suspected people smugglers wanted by French authorities have been arrested in the UK by the National Crime Agency. Albanian Lozim Farage and Iraqi national Rabin Sharif were tracked down and detained in London. Both are wanted in France, where prosecutors accused them of being involved in a number of small boat crossings in 2022. They're also suspected of money laundering and other organised crime offences. The Foreign Office has announced that a Russian diplomat has had their accreditation revoked by the UK. The tit-for-tat move comes after a British diplomat was expelled from Moscow last year. The Russian ambassador was summoned to the Foreign Office to be informed of the move. Foreign Secretary David Lammy said he was unapologetic about protecting the UK's national interests. The Princess Royal has returned to the hospital where she was treated after being knocked unconscious by a horse last year. During the visit to Southmead Hospital in Bristol, Princess Anne was able to thank the doctors and nurses who looked after her. The 74-year-old princess described how every day is a bonus after she suffered concussion and head injuries in the accident last June. OK, you're right up to date with the very latest headlines from the GB News Centre. Now it's over to the ubiquitous Martin Dobney.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Ubiquitous, well, have been called far worse. Now, tonight's show, the Conservative Party is pledging at last to tighten immigration rules after Reform topped a landmark poll for the first time earlier this week. In her first major policy announcement as Conservative Party leader, Kemi Badenoch today has pledged to double the amount of time an immigrant needs to have been in the UK before claiming indefinite leave to remain from 5 to 10 years. And to claim indefinite leave to remain, individuals must have no criminal record, never use benefits or social housing, and prove that their household is a net contributor. Well, our political editor Chris Hope spoke to the leader of the opposition earlier today in Peterborough.
We need to make sure that all of the people who are here have to have a meaningful contribution to the UK. So one of the things that we would be changing is making sure that people are net contributors to the UK. British citizenship is not an entitlement, it is not a right, it is a privilege. And we have one of the easiest routes to citizenship.
Well, there we go, but is it all a little bit too little, too late? And more to the point, do we trust anything the Conservative Party say on immigration? That's the topic of our first debate, and I'm joined in the studio by Robert Bates. He's a research director at the Centre for Migration Control, and my wonderful panel. That's Alex Stafford, the former Conservative MP, and Fahima Mohammed, the broadcaster and the neurodiversity coach. Welcome to you, one and all. Rob, I'm going to start with you. First major policy announcement, it had to be on immigration, with Nigel Farage's party nipping out the heels, in fact overtaken Kemi Badenoch's Conservative Party. I expected a big banger, felt like a damp squib, and more to the point, the kind of things that Kemi Badenoch was lamenting. She said there is a conveyor belt of people on the pathway of indefinite leave to remain, 2 million people by next year, to which most sane people will say, well, that's because you couldn't control the borders for 14 years while in power. My question to you is, the policies outlined today, will they have any impact, or is it just too little too late?
So, first of all, I think you're absolutely right. The Conservatives have a huge legitimacy issue when it comes to the topic of immigration. I think they presided over record levels and they have changed the country in many ways that we are yet to actually feel the effects of. When it comes to indefinite leave to remain, this is actually quite an anachronistic status that people are welcomed into. It's effectively an anteroom to citizenship introduced in 1971, where net migration was actually running in the negatives. So it's a status that has probably served its time in large part. What they've done is identified correctly that it is a problem that people after 5 years of being able to come into the UK and then sign on, claim benefits, have their children given British citizenship and bring over other relatives. I don't think it frankly goes far enough. I think the key point in their plans were that they are not going to retroactively review those that have been given this ILR status. So effectively, those huge numbers that we saw between 2019 and 2024, the so-called Boris wave, the big thing that we are all concerned about getting ILR, will, by the time these policies are actually implemented, already have achieved ILR. So it is effectively introducing measures that don't give them the power to improve the situation and to reverse some of the catastrophic immigration policies that they implemented on their watch.
Rob, do you think the world now is ready for something a bit more, I don't know, red meat? The dial has moved on. Look at what's happening across Europe. In France, they're saying no benefits for 5 years for anybody coming into the country. In Sweden, they're paying $36,000 for illegal immigrants to leave the country. They're paying them to get on a flight to go. Italy, they're towing back the boats to Tunisia. In Germany, closing the borders to all illegals and even deporting Afghans to the Taliban. Poland, army on the border, barbed wire on its border. Perhaps we could do the same on the beaches. Australia, points-based system. You must have a sponsor. USA declared a border emergency. Why not go for the DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency in America, defund all charities that actively undermine government immigration policy in the UK? That's the kind of red meat people seem to be receptive for. And I just think today's announcement by Kemi fell way shy of anything that's going to kind of get those reform voters back into the Tory fold.
So we are in unprecedented times when it comes to immigration with the numbers we've seen, and as such, if we want to bring about some semblance of control, we have to meet that with pretty strident measures. I would argue that allowing indefinite leave to remain to continue as it is in any form, whether it be 5 years or 10 years, is far too lenient. We shouldn't be having foreign nationals in this country who are able to claim benefits, universal credit, housing benefit and so forth. In 2019, the most recent year for which we have got pre-COVID data, there were around about 1 million individuals that were foreign nationals receiving benefits. That's about 1/6 of the total foreign national population. I don't think we should be extending to those who are nominally coming to the country to make an economic contribution this kind of support. And frankly, if people are coming here and they're not able to support themselves and they're reliant on the British taxpayer to effectively bail them out and to fund their lifestyle, then we should not be giving them the red carpet. We should not be extending to them the right to have settled status nor the right to citizenship.
Now, Rob Bates, I know the Centre for Migration Control, you're always trying to get hold of data that shows the truth, the kind of data we see in Denmark, in the Netherlands, in Germany, who contributes the most, who contributes the least. If we had that kind of data, we might be able to make educated guesses or policy directions on what we do, but we don't have that. And so in the meantime, we have this bland shot in the dark.
Well, that's exactly it. And, you know, you and I have been banging our head against a brick wall trying to get benefit claim data, more up-to-date benefit claim data by nationality. But the DWP doesn't seem to be able to provide it. It doesn't seem to have the wits within its ranks to actually produce that information. And this would actually hold back plans from the Conservative Party if they were to come in and try and introduce more stringent measures to actually work out where the immigration policy needs to be lying and whether ILR should just be extended carte blanche to every nationality or whether we should be tailor-making those that are actually able to access it to those that are more likely to be making a net positive economic contribution.
Thank you very much, Rob Bates. And let's bring in my panel now. Please stick with us, though. And that is Alexander Stafford and Fahima Mohammed. Fahima, let's start with you. When you hear politicians like Kemi Badenoch talking in these kind of terms, how does it make you feel?
I think she's just jumping on the bandwagon because it sounds very popular at the moment, especially with the reform Nigel Farage and his policies. And I think that definitely they're trying to backtrack and just get on the sort of, same sort of, train and bandwagon. So I think definitely they've seen something that is, obviously worked with the population, and basically everyone wants to blame immigration and think that that's working. And obviously, to
The
some
Labour
people, it
Party wants
feels...
to bring immigration down. Every party wants to bring immigration down. It's not a right-wing thing.
No, I'm not saying it is. I'm not either, I would say, right or left. I'm just making an observation as someone who is actually in the public and actually viewing this from a very, general sort of population, OK? When we look at and we hear politicians, they are at a different level to what I am seeing every day, working and being on the ground level, working in the grassroots and seeing exactly what's going on. And everyone is talking about immigration, but at the end of the day, it brings in so much. As you say, there's not much research, but there has been research from 2017 and 18 to show that it has brought billions in. It does rely on workers on the NHS and skilled sort of like staff and trained.
There's a huge discrepancy, Fahima, on the nationality and by those who...
Well, like you said, you have to go to the NHS and see who's actually there as doctors and nurses to know for yourself.
In terms of the economic contribution, it is ostensibly true across the entire Western world that nationalities such as Americans, South Africans, the Swiss, Cypriot, Maltese, French make a net contribution, a big contribution. And at the bottom end of the scale, like it or not, Afghans, Syrians, Iraqis, Somalians, they contribute the least. In fact, they're a net drain. This is the facts. The facts aren't racist. This is about controlling the types of people coming to this country. And if we had the correct data, we could perhaps make informed choices on that.
Well, I think whatever policies you have now, or even in the past, at the end of the day, it has to also consider, not just on a micro level, but on a macro level, as to why, with regards to foreign policies, where is actually money being sort of, distributed and contributed towards. And at the same time, I really feel that at the end of the day, when you're talking about Iraqis and this, that and the other, I have a whole community of Iraqis that I know that are all doctors and lawyers. So I don't know where that comes from, and I don't know what your statistics are. But again, like you said, those statistics
across entire.
Well, I'm an academic, and there's different level of statistics, and at the end of the day, not everything is credible.
Not every Iraqi come into Britain as a doc, so you're not serious.
Majority of them do have that, and they're females as well, where there are basically, I can pull up 100 in my contacts, by the way, dentists, lawyers, doctors, pharmacists.
I can put up data across entire continents.
At the end of the day, even the minority contribute a lot. Even, what was it, Starmer went just in December and was, begging for Saudi's contribution, which in, 2 weeks had 4,000, employment, sort of, in basically just before Christmas. So, you can't just talk about immigration as in, it's the problem, it's the one that we need. I think we need to talk about also the way in which the processes are happening, the way in which not just the borders, but the actual processes in Home Office, the way in which their delays are happening.
It takes too long and claims can be...
Exactly.
You can't get people out,
we do need to have control. I do not dispute that at all. And it does need to have a certain amount of, sort of, basically, you need to obviously have some sort of control with regards to indefinite leave and things like that and what's being proposed. But I actually do feel that it's not the only issue. Just like with Brexit, there's been research to say just because of certain policies at that time, the algorithms, the news, everything concentrated on that. People afterwards that were actually researched and asked questions, why did they actually vote it? It's because of what they heard in the news. There's also psychological analysis for that.
Untrue.
No, it isn't.
People...
That's my research.
They're voting for. You can't, Fahima, still be saying that people didn't know what they're voting for all these years later.
No, they regret it. Trust me.
OK, I'll trust you on that. Alex Stafford, let's bring you in now. You're a former Conservative MP. Did Kemi Badenoch do enough today to make you feel confident that they can fend off Nigel Farage's Reform Party?
Yeah, I think she did, actually. And it's not just about defending off reform, it's actually having a credible policy going to the next general election. First of all, we've got to realise how far the Conservative Party has fallen at the last general election. And one of the main reasons we lost, we did badly, was the public just didn't believe what we said. We were no longer credible on a number of issues.
Why should they believe Kemi Badenoch today, then?
Well, exactly. And it's quite refreshing that she's come up and actually said, we did make mistakes in the past. We're under new leadership. To me, this is the first time. You've got to admit to the public that we did make
mistakes a year.
Yeah,
that's the people coming in.
The party...
It's meant to be about take back control in 2016. Patently failed on that.
And this is why Kemi set out today quite a good policy. And I think that this is the start. The fact this is the very first policy she's come up with now as a leader is on immigration shows the Conservative Party is taking it seriously. But what we've got to remember, the road to the next general election is not a sprint, it's a marathon. And we've got to slowly rebuild the public's trust on a whole range of issues, but especially immigration and the economy. I think this is just the start. I think this is just the start of policies and tactics to show the public we're a sensible, serious party ready for government again, because we've got so far to go. But I think Kemi is actually saying today, look at us, we're starting that road to recovery, but it will take a long time.
Do you not think that people want a red meat option? This feels like a vegan option.
No, this is quite a sensible option, especially when you say people have to be net contributors, the household be net contributors. You're delaying getting a passport for an extra 5 years, so some people it would take 15 years to be living well in the country.
The taxpayers' tab. They might not become citizens, but they're still draining the country.
But they won't be able to get the housing benefits, social security benefits, and that's so important to show people we have a sensible policy going forward. And look, we've got 4 years next general election to set out our policy plan. This is just the first one. It's easy to throw red meat and not understand how we're actually going to pay for it or afford it, or actually carry it through. I think today shows actually we're the sensible, serious party. We're not just having glib red meat to everyone. We're actually saying we're going to take our time. We're going to discover what we need to do.
OK, well, there's a long way to go. Thank you very much, Rob Bates, excellent as ever, and my panel, Alex and Fahima. Stick around for the next part of the show, because coming up, the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, has backed knife archers in schools as she warns of growing violence caused by social media. Really, just how have we gotten to this stage? That's next on Farage.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
TikTok chefs, Instagram chefs, that they put children off or young people off of cooking because it's so expertly done they can't do it. No, my young lad, he's 17, he is amazing in the kitchen. Oh, he is. He's amazing in the kitchen. And he gets it all off TikTok. He comes down, he can put burgers, wraps, stews, curries, sauces, and the smells in the kitchen. I said, where'd you get these? Oh, just TikTok, I'm trying it out. And it's just amazing the things that he can conjure up. So for some people, it might be... it's an inspiration for him. So they're saying that it's intimidation. For my boy, it's an inspiration. They say it's entertainment. For my boy, it's an infomercial. I watch him doing his stuff. At that stage, I could do baked beans on toast and knock up a salad. That was it. But my boy can do all sorts of stuff.
It makes it accessible as well, doesn't it? Because lots of people say, like, you need an education to be in the kitchen, or you need to go find yourself loads of cookbooks. But you don't.
No.
You go on your phone now.
Well, I mean, like, all the spices, sesame oil. I mean, I'm amazed at the stuff that he does. So it's encouraging. All you just need is a kitchen well-stocked and have a go. And understand that failure is actually the route to learning. I mean, he's made mistakes, he's stuck stuff in the bin, but that young man, I am amazed at some of the stuff he does.
I don't mind cooking at all. It's cleaning up that I have the problem with. Dawn, let's talk about sex.
Can I just say there are things called restaurants, by the way? Just put that one. My hell, I don't even know where the kitchen is.
OK.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome back to Farage with me, Martin Daubney, standing in for the big man. Now, the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, will back the use of metal detectors in schools after acknowledging the government needs much stronger action to tackle the cancer of knife and youth crime. Now, statistics from the ONS show that knife offences have reached their highest levels since records began in 2011. Just last year alone, experts warned that worrying levels of youth knife crime incidents on the streets would ultimately spill into schools, and they were correct, because earlier this week, 15-year-old school student Harvey Wilgoose was fatally stabbed to death at his school in Sheffield by another 15-year-old. Well, joining me now to discuss this is Professor James Treadwell, Professor of Criminology at the University of Staffordshire. Professor Treadwell, thank you for your company. It says something about the state of the nation that the Home Secretary is even entertaining the notion of airport-style metal detectors in schools. Nevertheless, we have a serious problem with knife crime now. Too many dead bodies, too many young faces, and it's getting worse. Figures out yesterday from the Youth Justice Board show us 3,200 knife offences by children in 1 year alone. That's just the ones we know about, and that's a 20% increase in the past 10 years. Something has to be done. Are knife archers in schools the answer?
I think they're part of the answer, potentially and possibly. But knife archers often aren't very good, and I think we need to see the big picture. You know, the big picture is a complicated one. We're talking about a generation of kids now who grew up born into the austerity years. It's not just that. Schools very often are being asked to deal with a lot of the problems of society. Poor discipline at home, lack of boundaries, kids spending way too much time on social media, kids essentially out of over 52,000 suspensions for assaults on teachers. You know, so there are big problems out there. Those problems include knife crime, particularly in urban schools. Knife archers can find knives, but they're as good as the people operating them. At the same time that Yvette Cooper is backing knife archers in schools, we're only a few months on from the announcement from the Metropolitan Police that they were having to pull school officers out of schools because of budgetary cuts. We don't seem to be able to come up with a very coordinated and joined up approach that lasts long term. And I think the danger with knife archers in schools is, like I said, they're as good as the people who are operating them. The people who are going to be operating them, if they're placed into the schools, the burden is often going to be put back onto the frontline staff, onto teachers, onto learning mentors, onto people working in schools, and they are not police officers.
James, you're absolutely right. A friend of mine works in a primary school in London, in fact, where my daughter currently goes. He was searching kids who were 10 and 11 for knives. He knew they were carrying knives, and a parent made a complaint about him frisking down the child, and of course there was an allegation of impropriety against him. It almost cost him his career. It cost him his safety. Teachers shouldn't be security guards. Teachers shouldn't be doing this job. It's not their job. It's the job of broader society. The problem isn't in schools. The problem is taken into schools because it's a societal problem. But we continually shy away from this because we're scared of things, I don't know, like being called racist for stop and search. We have to admit we've got a social problem, and I'll be honest here, we have a cultural problem. You're 4 times more likely to be stabbed to death and 4 times more likely to stab somebody to death in London if you're a black youth. These are the facts. Why can't we stop blaming social media, stop blaming Amazon, stop blaming a knife archer and say we've got a serious cultural problem and that needs to be addressed?
I do think there are cultural aspects to it. I think there are other aspects as well, though. You've got to remember the economics of it. You know, where knife crime tends to flourish, tends to be in urban city centres, and
but the same poverty gets every culture and every demographic. For example, in London, in Birmingham, where knife crime is higher, typically we have a cultural issue. You can't blame poverty and all these other aspects. We have to grasp the nettle.
I think it's all of those factors, yeah. But you certainly know where you need to target. You know, you need to target the urban, impoverished inner city areas where and it isn't. You know, it isn't being played out in affluent, leafy suburbs. Although you do also get knife crime there. You know, you will because there is a broad cultural issue as well that accompanies it. You know, when I talk about, for example, the lack of boundaries, you know, and the attitudes today, those attitudes are shared across across large swathes of society, actually. And, a lack of respect for kind of adults and standards can be found in all sorts of groups of young people, not just those in urban city centres. But I think, the problem is by the time you get to a point where you're attempting to address the problem with children in schools, you're probably too late. It needs far, far earlier intervention into those places where things are going wrong. And it needs the state to step in a more kind of robust way. And unfortunately, what we seem to be doing all the time is, rather than saying, the state needs to be more robust in terms of dealing with these things, we're often saying, let's roll back the state more and more and more, and let's do less. I do think it's about targeting in the right way. I also do think it's about fundamentally what the function and the purpose of the police should be. It should be crime prevention, real violent crime prevention, not hurt feelings on social media. Now, the link with social media might be there, but really, when we're talking about violent crime, violent crime is dealt with, as you say, with things like stop and search, with targeting those that are more likely to be involved.
Great, we've got to stop there. Thank you. Excellent contribution there from Professor James Treadwell. Let's come back now to my panel. Of course, I'm still joined by Alexander Stafford and Fahima Mohammed. Let's start with you, Fahima, if I could. We've got a huge problem and it's totally out of control. How many young people need to die before we do something serious? And maybe that's about clamping down. Maybe it's about jailing offenders, a zero-tolerance attitude to knife crime.
It's funny you mentioned earlier that it's a cultural problem, but I actually work in the grassroots. Like I said before, I work in the Ministry of Justice. I coach people in probation. I am in charge of at least 6 to 10 boroughs in south of London. And I work alongside other coaches and get this kind of information. I work alongside policers and probation officers. So when it comes to crime, it is not just about culture. It is also about the fact that I'm...
Just about that, but
no,
it's
of course not.
A factor.
It is a factor, absolutely. But actually what we do is we are neurodiversity coaches, and there's 1 in 3, and people don't even address these kind of issues. It's not just about mental health, it's about people that are 1 in 3 in criminal justice that has neurodiversity, and we support them to
autistic and violent tendencies, things like that.
Absolutely. The behaviour which is not actually picked up, the diagnosis, it takes forever, it's only been talked about recently, and there is absolutely no support for it. I'm working in a company that absolutely is excellent with the Ministry of Justice to actually provide the service and actually get to the crux of it. It's not just about putting a metal detector so that we see everyone as criminals. It's about dealing with things where they can have that kind of support, and teachers included with experts from outside to come in and speak about this and give that kind of information so that we can actually transform mindsets to parents and to students. And I would love to do that in every single school and make it mandatory where we actually get that in there.
Great of Alexander Stafford. Quick comment from you. Knife archers in schools, we're treating the symptom. We're not getting to the root cause.
Well, you're exactly right. I think it's an absolute abject failure, or even suggesting knife archers in schools. Fundamentally, it's a failure of the home and the parents. No child should be bringing a knife into school. It's the cultural issues of people not caring enough for their children to understand they're carrying a knife. They're saying not being strict enough to say, why are you carrying a knife? What are you doing? As a parent, you should tell the police that your child is carrying a knife. That is so dangerous. You need to tell your children carrying a knife is so bad, and we've completely failed as a society if we're even contemplating or allowing our children to get hold of knives and using them without any sort of repercussions. This is absolutely horrific, and the root cause starts in the family and the family home, and it's clearly failing.
Parental responsibility also a factor. Alex Stafford, Fahima Mohammed, excellent debate. Thanks to you both. Now let's move on, because coming up next, Israel's defence minister is urging the European Union states who oppose the conflict in Gaza to take in Gazan refugees or risk exposing their hypocrisy. Is that the answer? A free Palestinian for all of these European Union states? That's next here on Farage.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
It's been quite a wet start to the year across Iberia, and there's more rain to come for Spain and Portugal. Plenty of sunshine, though, for Greece and across Cyprus after we had some showers here at the weekend. It is still a little on the cool side. Some showers heading into southern Italy and across Malta on Friday afternoon. Much of the south of Spain still dry at this stage, but that rain is moving in. Plenty of sunshine across the Canaries. That rain across Spain will head to the south of France as we go into the weekend, so turning wet in Nice.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. We're going to see the skies remaining clear towards the northwest during the next 24 hours with some frost and fog overnight, but increasingly cloudy elsewhere as high pressure begins to migrate towards Scandinavia, and that's going to establish an easterly wind coming in from the near continent. Not one of the colder easterlies we've experienced in recent years, but chilly nonetheless, and it will bring an increase in cloud across much of England and Wales, particularly towards the southeast, where there'll be some showers moving through overnight. In the northwest, though, staying clearer with frost and fog to wake up to. And it's going to be cold everywhere, whether you've got the clear spells to the north or the cloud and that easterly wind in the south. Feeling raw under the grey skies and showery rain or sleet through London and the home counties first thing. Some brightness for West Wales, the southwest of England, northwest England as well. A frost in places, but it's Northern Ireland, central and western Scotland where we'll see the sunniest skies during Friday morning. A bit more cloud there for the east of Scotland. Otherwise, cloud-free skies for the north and west of Scotland, always a favoured spot when winds are arriving from the east, and that's going to remain the case throughout the next few days. An unfavoured spot, if you're not a fan of grey skies and sleety rain, will be East Anglia, the south and southeast, where the rain, sleet and some hill snow will become more prevalent later in the day. 5 or 6 Celsius, feeling even colder when you add on the effect of that wind coming in from the North Sea. And as we start off Saturday, wouldn't be surprised if there'll be a little bit of a covering of snow over the Welsh mountains, the moors of the southwest, the Chilterns perhaps. Not much at lower levels at all. It's a mixture of rain, sleet and snow moving across England, Wales into eastern Scotland. A lot of cloud cover, and it's going to stay cold throughout the weekend and into next week as well as we keep those east to southeasterlies.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. Maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Farage with me, Martin Daubney, standing in for the big man. Now, Israel's defence minister, the wonderfully named Israel Katz, has challenged Spain, Ireland and Norway, often vocal critics, of course, of Israeli military actions, to take in Gaza refugees themselves, because he said they have a legal obligation to take in Palestinian refugees given their opposition to Israel's actions in Gaza. And if they refuse, he said that their hypocrisy will be exposed. At the same time, Mr. Katz ordered the Israeli army to prepare a plan for the voluntary departure of Gaza residents, saying it should be those criticising countries that step up and take these people in. Now, remember, just 1 month ago, Ireland joined South Africa's International Court of Justice case against Israel, accusing the country of committing genocide. Now, of course, Ireland's foreign minister dismissed it as a distraction, and Spain's foreign minister flat out rejected the idea. No surprise there, and I wonder why. Well, let's join me now is a Labour activist and writer, Aisha Ali Khan. Aisha, welcome to the show. Pleasure to have you. So there we go. Those who criticised Israel's actions most, if they want to make a positive contribution, they should take in a whole heap of Palestinian refugees. What's your take on that?
Well, Martin, let's be absolutely frank. This isn't just a suggestion where you're relocating a whole a whole race of people from one side to the other. You're literally telling people that you have to leave and there's no way back to your homeland. And this is effectively ethnic cleansing, and it should not be allowed. And the idea that Israel Katz has gone on record to say that the countries that have objected to their systematic genocidal killings of Palestinians in Gaza is these countries should step forward and accept these refugees, which this is exactly what the Palestinians will become. They will become stateless refugees. Is a mockery, really, of international law. They should not be allowed. The fact that Trump has gone before Netanyahu had even arrived for their meeting, went on record to say that he would love to turn Gaza into a seaside resort and
you don't actually
take
think
over
that's
the
true, do you?
Why say it then? The idea that people
perhaps he's just like throwing out these things to confuse the media continually.
Martin, we're not talking about, pets here. We're talking about real people, real lives, and real homes. Okay. This is the homeland of the Palestinians.
Okay,
they've been forced to leave because of the war. They've been forced to leave because of the constant bombs that Israel
Let's talk about the prospect of Palestinian refugees. If there's a genocide, as you claim, presumably they'd like to escape that genocide. They might want to go to another country around the world. But the trouble with that, when it happens, things tend to go wrong. Let's look at Denmark. They let in 321 Palestinian refugees in 1992, and by 2019, 64% of them had criminal records, and the same was true of their offspring. No Arabian state wants to take in any Palestinian refugees. The Jordanians and the Egyptians and the Lebanese, none of them want to take them in. Why do you think that is?
That is a myth. That is a myth that's constantly peddled to justify basically behaving in complete
it's not a myth. They've all said they don't want to take any refugees in.
Why would you want to take people in? The Palestinians have their own homeland. They deserve to be in their own homeland. They do not want to be anywhere else but their homeland. If you, Martin, can I just give you the example recently of the Syrian case, for example? As soon as Assad was overthrown, I know so many Syrians who said, right, now we're going to go home. They want to go home. Refugees don't want to be refugees and leave their homeland unless they're absolutely forced to do so. And
you're claiming there's a genocide going on in Palestine. Who wouldn't want to escape a genocide given the chance? The Jews would have no doubt been delighted to escape the genocide of Nazi Germany if they're offered the chance. They wouldn't stay in Germany. So the genocide thing doesn't stack up if you claim they don't want to leave and go to any other country. I'm just putting that to you.
Martin, you're trying to frame this whole argument as though everybody's doing a favour for the Palestinians. We're protecting the Palestinians by removing them from their homeland. Actually, I'll give you another suggestion that might protect Palestinians even more. Stop the bombing, stop the shelling, stop the indiscriminate attacks against women,
stop bombing Israel then. Hamas, October the 7th, if you recall, was started by Hamas.
According to Israel. And I'm not sat here supporting Hamas in any way whatsoever. I've condemned their attack and not just on in 2023, sorry, but even before that, I've been a vocal critic of Hamas, and I've defended the Palestinians, I've defended the Gazans, but I've always criticised Hamas. So let's get that on record. But what you're saying is that this is a fantastic option. The Palestinians will be safe. But look, your viewership, people that are tuning right now. I've been on this your show and other shows, other programs so many times. We've spoken about the people coming across on boats. We've spoken about this wave of immigration, this wave of migrants coming over, etc. These refugees, this 2.1 million refugees, this is not a small number. This is a large number we're talking about. And what Trump has said is no Palestinians are going to be allowed, i.e. they have to find somewhere else to live. Why would they?
We have to leave it there, Aisha. We've simply run out of time. But I think the point Donald Trump was making is we could try and relocate Palestinians, presumably away from Hamas, a terrorist regime. But look, nobody around the world seems to want them. We have to leave it there. Aisha Ali Khan, we've simply ran out of time. I'm afraid I've been told we must move on. We'll come to this conversation another time. Let's get back to my panel now. Alexander Stafford and Fahima Mohammed. Alexander, let's start with you. I don't get this idea that, on the one hand, it's a genocide, and on the other hand, nobody wants to leave. And if there is a way of accommodating Palestinian refugees, surely it's worthy of exploration. The point is, nobody seems to want them.
Well, I think again and again, none of the Arab states want to actually take any refugees. I think most people in this country agree in a two-state solution. We want a thriving two-state solution, but we've also got
Didn't we have that before October the 7th?
Well, exactly. We need Hamas to release the hostages, and they still have hostages, and that's should be always the starting point of anything. And once the hostages are relieved, then we can rebuild and should rebuild the Gaza Strip and Palestine. It's important the Israelis, the Palestinians do live in peace. But there can't be peace if they're still holding young children as hostages, innocents. Your previous speaker talked about war crimes and genocide, international community. What about the children, the 6-month-old boy who was kidnapped, taken across there? Where are the hostages and all this? We should talk about that again and again and remind people how this started by a mad Hamas regime who went to murder and rape thousands of innocent men, women and children.
Fahima Mohammed, you've been very patiently waiting to come in. Over to you.
Well, you know, this rhetoric has been going on and on and on, like as if it started only on 7th of October, and we know it's definitely not that. If you know your history very well, even a few days before the 7th of October, there were incidents. 2 weeks before then, year after year, for generations, there has been constant instances, and it's not just because of Hamas. What about the West Bank? Now, the Palestinians deserve their own state. They don't want to go anywhere else. Fair enough. If people are not even wanting to say it's a genocide or no genocide.
Should they have their own state if Hamas are back in control of it again, as before?
Do you know what? Hamas was not actually even sort of like promoted by the Palestinian people. It was actually Netanyahu that backed it. No, half of the population in Palestine is under the age of 16. OK, you talk about no one wants them and they are criminals. They have lived through war and sort of oppression, right? Which if you watch, you know, Channel 14 of Israeli channel, which I watch a lot of. Excuse me, please, do not say the same thing over and over again when it is only one-sided. Watch Channel 14 of Israeli TV. Listen to the Haaretz podcast from their own mouths to show how they are really been oppressing the actual Palestinians for generations. And on top of that, you talk about children, you know, hostages, which should be both sides. What about the 10,000 of not charged people that they so-called imprison for so many years, and we see that over and over again from the actual Israeli, you know, sort of military, have absolutely no...
Nothing justifies what happened on October 7th.
Absolutely not. We're not saying that, but that's all we're talking about. We need to go much further and beyond than that, and I'm sorry, I'm fed up of this rhetoric that goes on and on and on. I am no supporter of anyone, to be honest, except for the Palestinian people, and let them get back into the West Bank and stop maybe demolishing there. Maybe they can go across the border and just maybe stay there where they need to be and not have anyone there. There's no Hamas there. What's the problem?
The trouble with that, nobody wants to open their borders to these people, and that's their decision. We have to leave it there. We've simply ran out of time. Thank you very much. Now, forget career diplomats. One of Britain's top cats is back in the game because Palmerston, the former chief mouser at the Foreign Office, has come out of retirement for a prestigious new posting nearly 3,500 miles away in Bermuda. Because the black and white rescue moggy, look at that, beautiful on your screens, who served at the Foreign Office from 2016 to 2020, is now in the feline relations consultant in the British Overseas Territory. Is this made up? Oh, his social media account says he was lured out of retirement by a perfect role with Bermuda's new governor, Andrew Murdoch, a former Foreign Office colleague and Palmerston's current owner. Only the meetings he deems important and indulging in well-earned naps. Proof that in diplomacy, it's not just the humans climbing up the ladder. Now, coming up next, Donald Trump has signed yet another order condemning DEI, diversity, equity and inclusivity, to the dustbin. It's time for the UK to follow suit. I'll debate that next with me, Martin Daubney, here on Farage.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Estelle, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
This was thought to be a Ruskin. Ruskin was a very considerable polymath, an artist as well as many other things. So do you know why it was submitted for reappraisal? Was there a bit of a suspicion that it had been misidentified?
No, as you say, you know, it's a service that Christie's offer. You can submit an artwork that you have, so anyone can submit it and request an estimate, and then the auction house's appraisal service allows you space as well to describe it and ask for evaluation. And Christie's sort of looked at it behind the sheet of dirty old glass and recognised a sort of Turner-esque mood and feel and ambience about it. And because there was this close relationship between Ruskin and Turner, which is fascinating, we'll come on to that shortly, but they sort of felt, well, the brushstrokes are very strong, the line is very economic, and the colour of the palette seems to be rather Turner-esque. And then they called in a specialist paper historian who confirmed that actually the paper that was used was one that Turner favoured himself. So yes, it was originally considered to be by Ruskin, but then we discovered something more magnificent. And don't forget, what's really interesting, now it's for sale. The lucky buyer is not just buying a picture. The lucky buyer is buying a life story, a relationship that actually changed the course of art history because of the relationship between Ruskin and Turner themselves.
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Farage with me, Martin Daubney, standing in for the big man. Now, despite promises from the new government to crack down on NHS diversity drives, the health service is still advertising dozens of so-called woke diversity jobs, with some salaries reaching an eye-watering £123,000 per annum. Take, for example, an associate dean role in South West England, focused on quality, diversity and inclusion, of course. The starting salary is equivalent to 3 NHS doctors or 4 NHS nurses. Which would you rather have? Well, critics argue it's time for the NHS to scrap these roles altogether and redirect funds to frontline care. Meanwhile, across the pond, President Donald Trump's war on DEI has gone nuclear. Last night, he signed an executive order banning transgender women, that's biological males, from all women's sports. And this follows another order last week, putting all federal DEI workers on leave. So, who's got it right, the UK or the USA? Let's once again stuck into this with my panel. Alexander Stafford, former Conservative MP, and Fahima Mohammed, the broadcaster and neurodiversity coach. Alexander, I should start with you this time. So the Department of Government and Efficiency in America has firmly set its sights on DEI. A lot of people are saying it stands for didn't earn it. It's basically favouritism, getting the PIP to jobs. And what we're seeing now is huge sums of money being spent on this with no real discernible outcomes in education, crime, or even in the armed forces. So the big question is it time for Britain to follow suit?
Well, I think it's absolutely ridiculous when you've got one hand Labour claiming there's a massive deficit, a massive budget hole, and on the other hand, as you said, spending £120,000 for what's one diversity officer in one part of the NHS. That's ludicrous. That money could be and should be better spent. The times of plenty are over now, so let's cut our cloth, and that means cutting some of these ridiculous roles. Now, that's not to say that, some of this function can be and should be carried out by HR. There needs to be. We want to encourage a diverse workforce, get more people, women, minorities into certain jobs. but that shouldn't be at that expense, and it shouldn't be at the cost of that much to the taxpayer.
Do you think, Fahima, it's now fair to say that the bubble has well and truly burst on the DEI industry? People see it for what it is. In the RAF in Britain, white working-class boys are being kept out. They're being overlooked for jobs. There was a discrimination case precisely about that. West Yorkshire Police this week. 1.3 million quid a year being spent on this nonsense. That could be 45 coppers on the beat. Do we really need diversity officers and pride flags in these jobs, or do we just need to get the job done?
I think we just need to get the job done. I mean, am I here because of DEI initiative? Do I just bring spice and, colour to GB News? No, I like to think it's because of my skill. I'd like to think it's because of my expertise, and I could speak and I can talk and I can say what I need to say. And that's what it comes down to.
That's exactly right. That is exactly right. Hallelujah. And thank you for saying that. You're here because you're talented and amazing.
Exactly.
And isn't that the point? We just want the best people for the best job and do away with all this nonsense.
Well, it shouldn't be completely away. I think, I'm sort of saying that, like you mentioned as well, Richard, at the end of the day, there has to be some sort of, initiative to actually invite people to opportunities and having that. But it shouldn't be at the forefront, because for me, I want to work with people who are skilled, who are able, who can do it. I don't care who you look like and what you are, where you come from, as long as we can get the job done at the end of the day. I mean, there are certain industries that maybe they might find that they do need to teach them, but I feel as an individual, I don't need to be told who I need in my company and who I need to be as my colleague because of a certain colour or a certain background. It really is to do with who is best at the job.
A lot of people are going to be punching the air and raising their gin and tonic towards the screen at this moment, Fahima. Fantastic to hear that. Alex, the point is, is there going to be any appetite, certainly within the current government, to get the water cannon to these roles and to just spend the money where it should be spent? Or do you think DEI, never mind what Donald Trump says, we don't have executive orders, we don't have somebody like Elon Musk or Donald Trump, we've got the Labour Party. Is DEI here to stay in Britain for the short term?
Well, I think, unfortunately, it probably is under this current government. It's a cultural aspect, and the Labour Party is a culturally aspect that they want to promote these roles and talk about things. I think when you look at these emails now from government departments, you get people's pronouns on the emails, which I think is ridiculous. Call me whatever. When was the last time you actually called someone by their pronouns in the first place? Call me Alex, and that's fine. Don't call me pronouns. I don't care. You can call me he, she, they, whatever. I actually don't care. And no one should care about that. We shouldn't waste our time going through initiatives training you about what pronouns to ask or not ask, or feeling you have to wear a certain diversity lanyard or not. If you want to, great, but that's your choice, and it goes back to people's own choice. Okay. It shouldn't be government mandated and paid for by the taxpayer.
Well, we've got to leave it there. Alexander Stafford and Fahima Mohammed, your pronouns, a pair of you, are top bananas. Fantastic panel tonight. Now, coming up next, of course, is State of the Nation with Matt Goodwin. Matt, what's on your show?
Hi, Martin. How are you doing? Well, we're going to be looking at Kemi Badenoch's new policy announcement. Will it be enough to stop reform? We've got Britain's strictest head teacher in the studio with us tonight talking about her bombshell letter to Labour Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson. We've then got one of the world's leading experts on the Middle East talking about Trump's plan to build the Riviera of the Middle East. And then, last but not least, we've got a leading economist talking to us about the Bank of England rate cut and some gloomy forecasts about what's coming next.
No vegan options on that menu. Full red meat there with Matt Goodwin, State of the Nation. That is up next. Thanks to my wonderful panel. It's been tremendous. Thank you very much. It's been an excellent show tonight. I hope you enjoyed it. I've been standing in for Farage. I'll be back tomorrow, 3 till 6 p.m, live and direct from Paddington. Kemi Badenoch today sent the first policy out. Was it a big firework or was it a damp squib? Chew that one over with your evening meal. Up next, State of the Nation. Have a fantastic evening. Well done.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. We're going to see the skies remaining clear towards the northwest during the next 24 hours with some frost and fog overnight, but increasingly cloudy elsewhere as high pressure begins to migrate towards Scandinavia, and that's going to establish an easterly wind coming in from the near continent. Not one of the colder easterlies we've experienced in recent years, but chilly nonetheless, and it will bring an increase in cloud across much of England and Wales, particularly towards the south. southeast, where there'll be some showers moving through overnight. In the northwest, though, staying clearer with frost and fog to wake up to. And it's going to be cold everywhere, whether you've got the clear spells to the north or the cloud and that easterly wind in the south. Feeling raw under the grey skies and showery rain or sleet through London and the home counties first thing. Some brightness for West Wales, the southwest of England, northwest England as well. A frost in places, but it's Northern Ireland, central and western Scotland where we'll see the sunniest skies during Friday morning. A bit more cloud there for the east of Scotland. Otherwise, cloud-free skies for the north and west of Scotland, always a favoured spot when winds are arriving from the east, and that's going to remain the case throughout the next few days. An unfavoured spot, if you're not a fan of grey skies and sleety rain, will be East Anglia, the south and southeast, where the rain, sleet and some hill snow will become more prevalent later in the day. 5 or 6 Celsius, feeling even colder when you add on the effect of that wind coming in from the North Sea. And as we start off Saturday, wouldn't be surprised if there'll be a little bit of a covering of snow over the Welsh mountains, the moors of the southwest, the Chilterns perhaps. Not much at lower levels at all. It's a mixture of rain, sleet and snow moving across England, Wales into eastern Scotland. A lot of cloud cover, and it's going to stay cold throughout the weekend and into next week as well as we keep those east to southeasterlies.
We'll see a cold snap, which will quickly develop into a warm front. Boxed Boiler Repairs, sponsors of weather on GB News.
We're giving you not one, but 2 chances to win this month, with 2 prize bundles that include an incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash. But that's not all. You'll also get a brand new iPhone 16 and a £500 shopping voucher to spend at your favourite store. So why not be extra lucky this month? For a chance to win an iPhone, vouchers and £10,000 in cash, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching